In this video, guys, we're going to talk about the fact that we are finally breaking out of this triple bottom and this big resistance line that we have been covering for so long right now. And this is very bullish, of course, and we are going to take a look at all of the interesting things. And is this because of the fact that we are anticipating a approval in the ETFs? Well, this is something that we are going to talk about, because the fact that we're so bullish right now very well could be because of the fact that we have the ETFs kind of hanging in the air here. And this article is very interesting because reportedly here we have two insiders from the CFTC and from the SEC actually saying that they think that the ETFs are going to be approved. And in this video I'm going to talk about what these two guys, these insiders, said about these ETFs. So are we going to see ETFs get approved, and what is this going to do to the Bitcoin price? Well, if you think that this sounds interesting, then I think that you should definitely keep watching this video. Hello guys, and welcome to the moon. My name is Carl and I'm here to bring you another cryptocurrency video. And wow, guys, we are actually breaking out of this triple bottom that we have been following for so long right now. So it's actually a big day right now. This is I mean, we've been waiting for this for so long right now, and I didn't really want to expect that we were going to break out this soon, but it looks like the bulls really are decisive here and they want to break out, and they actually are right now. So and just right off the bat, let's just take a look at the volume just to see if, I mean, are we breaking out for real, or is this a fake out? And we can see that the volume is definitely picking up here. Let me go into the 1 hour instead. And so you can see here that we were going up here, from this little ascending triangle here. And then right here, you can see here we started to see volume truly pick up. And yeah, so we have volume here. It's not a fake out, even though we have seen some resistance here in the $8,000 level. Might be because of the fact that it's a big psychological number. And it might also be because it might be a pretty much the exact target out of this bullish this bullish flag, this bull flag. If we measure from this point, which you could definitely do, you could measure from down here as well, like we did in my last video, and that gives us a target of around 8.4 thousand. But yeah, so we are breaking out right now, and well, let's talk about this for a small little, because I mean this is what we have been waiting for so long here. We've been talking about this triple bottom for, I don't know, like 2 months now, and we've been talking about how we might go down to the 6.5k level or the 6k level and bounce back up, go to this resistance line and break out. And right now that is pretty much exactly what is happening. And this is right after being down here in this this area where we, which we call the despair period here on my channel. Down here, we've been following this channel here and kind of calling this the mean, the underlying trend. And when we broke down here, this is what I've been calling the despair period. We've never seen so much negativity before in Bitcoin. I mean, it was truly much more negativity down here than back here and back here. So I've called this the despair period, and I actually even called this the bottom when we were down there. I made a video about that. But I think that this area here was a area in which Bitcoin did not really enjoy being in. And I actually told you that analogy I came up with the basketball that you try to push down underwater, and you try to push and you try to push, and the bears form this head and shoulders here, trying to push down the price, push the ball down into the water here, but the bulls were too strong, and the buoyancy from the water and from the buying pressure from the bulls at this point down here, the bears were not strong enough to push down the price. And when we broke the 6.8k level, which was the level the bears were trying to defend, we just shoot right back up here. And I think that that's pretty much what happened on a psychological level here, that it was truly a war between the bears and the bulls. I think that the bears thought that they were going to be able to push down the Bitcoin below 6k, but well, they failed here, and this actually created this fake out here that we talked about. And this is something that I've seen countless times in technical analysis and informations, that when we see a fake out to like the wrong side, if we expect a breakout to this side and we see a fake out down here, very often what I've seen is that we actually go straight up to the resistance line and we break out. That is something that I've seen many times, and I wanted to make you aware of that scenario in which we just go straight up. And of course, I also said in that video that we should not bet our whole stack on that probability, because even though it might be a likely scenario, we don't really know if that's going to play out or not. But of course, I did put in that massive trade. I actually put in my trade down here at 5.8k. I've talked a lot about my trade down there, and much because of the fact that I just think that Bitcoin was definitely oversold here. I definitely thought it was the bottom, and well, this is something that we have seen right now. But one thing I want to say is that the fact that we went straight up and broke out right now, probably because of this fake out. The thing is that these fake outs, I think I've seen them more in falling wedges rather than in other formations. So, and what I mean by that is, let me just draw what a falling wedge would look like in this Bitcoin chart here. Here we have the exact same resistance line as we have in the triple bottom, but the support line would actually be drawn like this kind of. So yeah, like this. We have a falling wedge, which is also a bullish formation, which also calls us to break to the upside here, and actually gives us, let me see here. It gives us pretty much the same target as the triple bottom, so it doesn't really change anything right here. But this is what I'm talking about here, that this fake out, I've seen them more often in falling wedges rather than in other formations. And here you can actually see a representation of this, what I am talking about. We see this falling wedge, then we see a dip down, and I guess the psychology here is that the bears, they make a final push, like they try to drag down the price, but the bulls are saying, guys, you are not going to pass down here, and they just blow straight back with full force. And because of the fact that this was the bulls territory, they just gained so much momentum, and well, the bears are just totally they lost control, and now the bulls just take over the price action. And I mean, that's just, but what I'm saying is that the dip here, or the little fake out, sometimes can be a very good indicator that we are going straight up. And of course, I don't want to sit here and come off as though I don't want to sound like I said that that is exactly what is going to happen, that we're going to go straight up here. I don't think that I've ever said that. I just said that I think that we should definitely factor in that scenario as a possible thing, that we actually go straight up here because of this little dip down here below the 6K level. Because the 6K level has always been that level that is the ultimate level, because of the fact that we had the February low down here. And yeah, so that creates that bottom support line. So yeah, that means that it could be a falling wedge instead of a triple bottom. And to be honest, I mean, the falling wedge, I mean, that looks really beautiful here. But once again, it doesn't really change too much here, because our target in the triple bottom would be computed like this. The lowest value there up to the resistance line, we put it at the point of the breakout. Gives us a number of approximately 14,000, which I said in that video I made about the triple bottom. You can watch it up there if you want to watch it. And then if it's a falling wedge, then I would compute it like this. That gives us well, $1,000 lower target of about 13,000. So yeah, it's a small difference, but regardless of if it's a falling wedge or if it's the triple bottom, we are breaking out of the same resistance line, because the resistance line is the same regardless. But yeah, I guess just to summarize, the fact that we saw this dip and we're going straight up here, it just, yeah, falling wedge looks quite nice. But yeah, let's go back to the Bitcoin chart here. And right now we seem to have found some resistance in the $8,000 level. And the $8,000 level has held some significance in the price previously. Saw the $8,000 level kind of support us here. and give us some support here, and we got supported right there, but then we broke down, and since then we haven't really been there. And right now we can see that after this breakout we are kind of taking a little breather here, seeing some resistance come into action, and that is where we are exactly right now. So we're gonna have to see what happens here. I think it is a little bit weird that we are stopping here after a breakout out of this line. I would actually expect us to go a little bit further before seeing the price stop, but well, it's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen here. But we do have the volume here. The volume is picking up, so we are going up here. And I actually put in a small trade here. When we broke this line here, we formed this little ascending triangle and got a breakout out of this here. And when we saw, because we did see the volume pick up, and then we saw this candle really start to pick up volume, so somewhere around here, yeah. And so far we're going up here, really nice to see. And actually this big resistance line, according to this price action, maybe this resistance line was not very well put out, and I actually went over to the Coinbase chart instead. And if we zoom in here, we can see that because in this chart I tried to put this yellow line exactly at the exact dollar amount there and there, and that gives us a little bit better looking line here, I think, where we went up to this line, found resistance, got back down, tried again, and then we kind of just wedged a little bit. And if we bring up the volume, we can see that even though we got a kind of a volume spike right here, the volume was low, but right here you can see the volume definitely right here, the volume definitely started to pick up here. And so I would say that exactly here, that's this candle right there, this 15-minute candle, that's where we broke out. And we can see the volume has been quite high since then. Now the volume is of course going down a little bit, so we're gonna have to see exactly what's happening here. It's a little bit weird that we don't see that conviction that I would expect when breaking out of this formation. But I mean, the fact that we are breaking out right now instead of seeing a small correction like I was expecting before breaking out is just very, very bullish. It's more bullish than I dared hope for. Very bullish indeed. And this is after this little fake out. And I would say that a lot of this might be because of the fact that we do have this ETF approval pending. I think that that could answer to why we broke out so fast, and that we are seeing the bulls truly just shoot up here. And the fact that the altcoins are doing so poorly right now compared to Bitcoin is also, in my opinion, definitely because of the ETF approval pending here, because people are leaving altcoins for Bitcoin, but people are not leaving Bitcoin to fiat, because Bitcoin is going up in dollar value and in altcoin value, but the altcoins are going down definitely here in Bitcoin value. And the Bitcoin dominance is all the way up at 46.8%, and that is quite extraordinary. That is something that I did not anticipate here in the short term here. I actually thought that we were going to see some resistance in the 45% area like I talked about, but it seems like I was wrong here. We saw some initial little small resistance, I guess you could say, to be fair. But right here you can see that we shot right past it, and we are currently up at 46.85%. So that is quite extraordinary for the Bitcoin dominance. It's actually it was a very long time ago since we were up here all the way back in December, guys. That's a long time ago. That's 7 months ago. So we are breaking market structure here. You could say that we are truly breaking new ground. And I guess that a lot of this needs to be, but I guess that the biggest reason for this must be the ETFs. I think people are starting to anticipate that we are going to see positive ETF approval. I mean, we've all seen this picture get sent around, and this is exactly what I also talked about in my video, that I found out that the gold ETFs were actually introduced right here, and this is the gold chart that you see here. This is where the ETFs were introduced, and also you can note that the there was another exchange traded product launched down here, and before this initial run up, and then here the futures in the golds, the first futures got launched, and then we went down, and then we saw this big bull market, and here the biggest gold ETF was introduced. So when everyone started to talk about the Bitcoin ETFs, I got very curious and I started to just Google around. I Googled the first ETF in gold and the first ETF in different commodities, and what I found is what I just told you, and I mean that's quite extraordinary. I think that we have that kind of just based on that information, it seems that futures pull down the price, ETFs pull up the price, manipulated or not, regardless, that seems to be the underlying trend or the underlying power of futures and ETFs. And you might say it's manipulated, and it might very well be. I mean, it's hard to argue against it, really. But so the thing is that we saw futures get introduced here in Bitcoin at the exact all-time high, just like we saw in gold, and then possibly down here at the exact bottom, like we saw back here, we see ETFs possibly getting introduced. And one thing is, of course, true. This gold chart is spanning over several years. This down here is 1960, 1980. 2000. I mean, here we're only a few months in Bitcoin. So, but yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I think that people seem to be anticipating this right now. They think we're going to see the ETFs get launched, and they think we're going to go up several 100%. And even though that is possibly very true, I think that is starting to get factored into the Bitcoin price action right now. I think that we see a lot of bullish sentiment because of this, and that also creates a risk here that if we continue to go up here and then we get a negative decision, they say no, that means that we're already priced in the ETF here, and that means we're probably going to see a very big fall back down again, because right now we're pricing in a positive decision, I think, because people seem to anticipate that we are going to see a positive decision, much because of this picture that has been going around, but also we've seen some news stories get around, and this is one of them on Zero Hedge. Let me go through this. So I guess this is the crypto news section of this video right now. Bitcoin ETF nearly certain to win approval later this year. Working back channels at the SEC and the CFTC in particular, we've come across two sources that seem to be nearly certain that the crypto ETF conversation is about to take a seriously bullish turn. So according to this article, they have actually two sources from the SEC and the CFTC that actually say that they have kind of insider information or whatever you want to call it, and they say that it's very likely that the ETFs are going to get approved. And let's take a look at this article and dive into what they actually say here. Our most optimistic source, coming from the CFTC, said the following: I would call it 90% at this point. The crypto markets have moderated, and regulators have watched the lack of the drama surrounding Bitcoin futures across several global exchanges. The price moderation and adoption of a peer product is what the conversations have centered around. In January, we were justifiably concerned about a bubble and the harm a quickly approved product could attract speculators and create losses that led to significant lawsuits. Now, those factors seem to be mitigated significantly. So what this guy said from the CFTC is that they didn't want to launch any Bitcoin ETFs back here when Bitcoin was going straight up and when there was kind of a bubble territory. Yeah, so that's kind of the and if we assume that they don't want to manipulate the price, then this is actually an argument that I can find reasonable. It might be better to launch a big financial product when the price has cooled down a little bit, when the price is less volatile. So I guess it's a valid argument, but make of that what you will. Let's go to the second source. A former SEC employee who left the regulator 2 weeks ago had this to say. And okay, so SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, they are the ones that are actually they are the ones behind this decision. So this might be interesting to hear what a former SEC employee has to say about the ETF. So he says the following: I would expect a positive outcome in September, or if it gets strung out a little further, it is simply a few dotted I's and crossed T's that are being finalized on a larger regulatory language in the crypto space. To be clear, most of the regulation will be first focused on the ICOs and the issues those pose for retail investors at the moment. US residents are sending money to all sorts of exotic locations to invest in unregulated instruments with absolutely zero recourse for losing every cent they've put at risk. ICO regulation will begin to solve those issues and keep client assets onshore. But the key thing he said here was, of course, I would expect a positive outcome in September. So what he is saying essentially is that, well, he thinks that we're going to see the ETFs getting approved, and all of the regulation will be surrounded around the ICOs and not Bitcoin. And so I guess what we can take away from this is that the SEC might be very bullish for Bitcoin and Ethereum and such, but the ICO regulation might still be very strict, which is totally fair. That is something that I would love to see. The ICOs should not be able to scam people like they have been doing. And what would an ETF mean for the whole crypto market? Well, according to these guys, they say the following. Well, let's take a look at the article and see what they say about this. Well, the regulatory agencies are fully aware that once this door is cracked open, it will create a flood of submissions, approvals, new products in every color, shade, and denomination connected to crypto. And this is very true. I think that because Bitcoin is the main thing. When Bitcoin gets that ETF approved, that is going to create this kind of approval for crypto in general. I think both for everyone, for financial investors, for institutional investors, for retail investors, for the media. This is truly the Wall Street and the banks going into Bitcoin. And good or bad, don't get me wrong, but that is just for mass adoption and for the big money to go in. I think this is a big good thing, and I would expect this to of course leave the door open for Ethereum ETFs. And ETFs they would probably start creating ETFs of maybe the top 10 cryptocurrencies or the top 100 cryptocurrencies. So instead of going into buying every single cryptocurrency on Binance, you can go in and buy a ETF that has a basket full of big cryptocurrencies. And just like I've been talking about, even though that is good in the short term because that makes us a lot of money because we were here first. But this creates a very big risk of bubble territory where we are going to inflate the cryptocurrency market, that the big money is going to go in and buy everything they see. And this is going to create bubbles in the altcoin markets, definitely. And altcoins are going to be overvalued to the point that it's going to be ridiculous. And of course, yes, that is going to make you a lot of money if you can sell at the top. But we need to be aware of this, that this kind of money could definitely push the price up to extraordinary heights. And I think that in the long run, we are going to see Bitcoin go into a bubble, a real bubble. But I think we are a long way away from that. Between $1 and $5 million, I think that when we break somewhere along those lines, I would say that maybe it's time to contemplate the possibility of us being overvalued. But it's definitely very hard to say when Bitcoin would be overvalued. But yeah, so I think that these kinds of articles and this kind of talk right now that people are anticipating this ETF is what possibly is what is driving the price up right now. So what I'm hoping is that this rally here is not only because of the ETF anticipation and then we get rejected, the ETF gets rejected, and that would just push it right back down again. That would not be nice to see, and that is of course a possible scenario. So and we need to bear everything in mind here, but so far this is very bullish, and I hope you also put in a trade at this point here and put in a stop loss. I would put the stop loss just right below where you bought in here. And yeah, so we broke this major line. This is very bullish. We've been talking about this for so long. I think many people are watching this line here, and right now if we continue to go up, Just like I talked about in yesterday's video, I am definitely watching the 200 daily moving average, this red line, because we've just seen this red line being significant 3 times before here. And over on my Patreon, for you patrons, I'm going to upload a video about the altcoins and Bitcoin, how they are doing compared to each other, the Bitcoin dominance, and I'm going to take a look at the technical analysis on Ethereum like we've been doing for a few days now. So don't miss that. But this is going to be it for this video, and if you click down here, you can watch that ETF video, and I will see you guys tomorrow.